We were all children once. Most of us. Probably. We did some very dumb and stupid things. You know what I'm talking about. That thing you regret doing years ago because you didn't know any better. I'll admit, there isn't much I remember from my blurry memory, but I can think of a couple things I did. Things I did back in the day when I had a body, arms and legs, and my voice was as high as Fred's. One time when I was at church, I asked a woman who came out of the bathroom what she just did in there. Why? Heck if I know. I didn't know what I was doing. My mind was nothing but a hollow fart at the time. I never even remembered doing it until some of my family members told me about it. Another one I remember from the top of my head was when I was in primary 3. Since I was a tall, tough, chubby, cocky little sleeve bag, I put my hand on top of a pot of sharpened pencils, leaving little dotted marks on the palm of my hand. Since I was an idiot 8-year-old, I thought it was funny, so I showed it to my teacher, who yelled at me and got me in trouble for being so stupid. I bring this up because it's something that I don't think many people take value in. I'm just going off on a whim here, but I don't think many people look back on these kind of memories as a good thing. I don't blame them. There have been plenty of things I've done which I've tried to erase from my memory, but even without knowing it, all these events in your young life that seem like tragedy actually end up being excellent life lessons. Sure, at the time me being yelled at by my teacher in front of my classmates made me feel embarrassed and probably ruined the rest of my day, but as an adult, looking back at the dumb thing I did, I'm glad that teacher yelled at me. Think about it, if she had just laughed it off and excused me without consequence, then yeah, being a stupid 8-year-old, of course I'd do something stupid like that again. Our lives are full of stuff like this, even without knowing it. It's the building blocks of life, the things you learn and regret, knowing the difference between good and stupid. It's the difference between turning out like this and this.
Get a fucking meatball sub! I don't have that. Get it!
I can't speak for everyone, of course, but something that always keeps me remembering the lessons I learned and something that gives me an insight into my childhood is Pingu. Alright, what do you want? Yeah, your point? Typical. So because it's a cartoon for babies, it's not worth looking over? You're so simple-minded. Can this wait until later? I'm kinda busy here. Please be a pest somewhere else. Might as well get this out of the way. Some people, probably most people, would argue that media directed at children isn't worth looking over in any critical sense. It's the same people that say, for example, the Emoji Movie is made for children, therefore people should lay off the criticism because it wasn't made for them. Hey, I was just checking the IMDb page for the Emoji Movie right now, and I just noticed, seems to be that people who liked the Emoji Movie are people who seem to have liked all these Baby Geniuses movies. I don't know, I just thought that was pretty funny. Even though there are countless of examples of so-called kids movies that are suitable enough to entertain adults and teenagers as well. Of course, this being the internet, you'll always find some simple-minded degenerates say that you should only look at something the same way they do. It happens all the time with video games too, maybe even more so. You didn't like that game, everyone else does? You're wrong. You like that cartoon? Well, I don't think it's good. As if there's some objective truth to how everything should be. That's not really how real life works. I feel like I've mentioned this somewhere before, I'm not really sure. I guess my point is that I can look at something like Pingu as an adult and make my own judgment on it. It might be a little strange to some people, what I might say might be daft to some people. It might even be something you never expected to hear. That's only because I see something in this cartoon that's special to me. If you're someone who thinks that what I say about this cartoon for preschoolers is wrong in a destructive, tactless way, then you really need a hug. I shouldn't need to mention this, but I feel like I need to, this being the internet and all. Aside from being the greatest thing ever made, Pingu is a stop-motion preschoolers television series about cute penguins doing human things and living a human life. Well, thank goodness for that, because I hear the real penguin way of living isn't exactly a pushover. The creator's a man, I think, there isn't really much information on him, who's named Otmar Gutman, who has also worked on shows like... well, nothing. Pingu's really the only thing he's worked on that's worth a damn, let's be honest. What, you thought there'd be more? That's pretty much all there is in terms of the history behind the creation of Pingu, as far as I can tell. You'd think with how popular it is there'd be more to tell, but I guess not. I was very young when I first watched Pingu, too young to even remember. I was so young that my family never even had a DVD player at the time. I watched it on VCR. Look at this thing. It's so heavy I can barely pick it up. It's like a brick. How far we've come since then. How do you even fit this on a shelf? The bloody thing is thicker than a flat screen, for goodness sake. Man, this thing is so thick I bet a bullet can't puncture it. I wanted to try something out. I wanted to find another indestructible object and see how it would fare against this VCR. Once the objects were in place, I let her rip. Ready, go! Oh. So, Pingu was produced in 1990 to 2000. I started watching it around 2000 because that's when I was 3 years old. I don't remember watching it for the first time, obviously, but I do remember watching it over and over and over. There is so much I remember from the top of my head looking back. I remember the seal. I remember Pingu peeing himself. I remember the cave. Oh my goodness. The cave. Like all people, I grow up, forget about it and move on to do other things. I was reintroduced to Pingu years later, in a way, thanks to the internet, which made me realise how popular it was. I guess it was good to know that it resonated well with others as much as it did me. I doubt I'm the only one when I see Pingu has been in the back of my mind all my life, and I don't really know why. At least I didn't until now. I mean, I watched Bob the Builder, The Magic Roundabout, and the Teletubbies around the same time I watched Pingu, yet I remember so much less from them. I think it's finally worth a rewatch for me. I think rather than just tell you about it, we can go through the series together and go over why it's so great. At least most of Season 1. Let's just stick this bad boy in. Oh. Whatever, I'll just torrent it. Alright, a few things. I do not have a working VCR anymore, so I'm going to be ripping the episodes straight from the DVD. Unfortunately, the episodes are in a completely different order than I remember them being in from the VCR. The DVD also has an episode missing for some reason, so I'm going to go through the order of the episodes that are shown in the wiki, with a few swaps, as this is what I most closely remember to watching back in the day. I know it doesn't matter what order you watch the episodes of the series in, with the exception of like 3 episodes, but I'm doing this just to save myself some confusion. I have no idea why I'm taking this so seriously. Maybe it's in case the 3 Pingu fans that exist prepare my demise for not treating Pingu with the respect he so clearly deserves. Wait a second, this isn't right. I remember the intro being different. Yeah, this is the one. Huh. Well, I guess this is the theme now. No biggie. I just hope the show stays the same. Right off the bat, we see Pingu eating dinner with his mother and father. This is what we start to learn what to expect. A playful tone with a lot of visual gags. You'll also notice something else rather quickly. What?
Americano gonna mean Sydding.
Excuse me?
What
What are you saying? Yeah, there's no talking in the show. Well, there's talking, but there's no English. Or any language. Everything that comes out of their mouth is completely gibberish.
Gonna mean Sydding.
I actually remember asking my parents when I was younger what language they spoke because I knew it wasn't English. So they told me they spoke gibberish. So for the longest of time, I thought there was a country where people actually spoke that language. They must be Gibberian and live in Gibberia. So Pingu finishes his food, twerks over to the toy box and goes outside to play with his ball. Then these two degenerates show up and take the flipping ball from him when he isn't looking. Pingu gets justifiably peeved off and lets out his mighty war cry for the first time. Yeah, you get him, Pingu. Show him who's boss. Break their necks. Take back what is rightfully yours. Yeah, get him. Take back your property.
I have had it with these motherfuckers.
Whoa, buddy. Did you just push Pingu?
I have had it.
So these disgusting penguins bully and pee up Pingu for a while before Pingu has enough, runs away and guns them down. Okay, I'm kidding, that never happened, though I wish it did. But he barely makes it back home alive. He gets back to his parents who comfort him, and ends in one of the most sweetest ways I've seen in a while. Aww. Now I bet any teenager or adult to watch this episode and tell me that they did not go through something very similar to what Pingu went through in the episode when you were younger. I'll go over a few things I went through. Being told off for not eating properly. Having foods that I never wanted to eat. Blowing bubbles in a glass. Heck yeah, as soon as you learn that as a kid, you can never stop. Being asked to finish my meal before playing. Spitting the food down the toilet. Deep throating a fish. Wait, I never did that. Making funny faces in a mirror. I still do that today. Well, at least I did. I'm in space now. Getting my dad to fix my toys. Parents helping blow my nose. Now this is just too relatable for me. Older kids throwing to and from each other while I'm stuck in the middle of them for their entertainment. I feel Pingu's pain more than you know. I actually did that to my brother once. I'm sorry I did that. I'm not sorry for that lowlife though. And finally, relying on your parents to give you unconditional love and make you feel better. Tell me, you watching this episode right now haven't gone through any of these when you were younger. Yes, I pretty much just recapped the whole episode, but that's only because everything that happens in this episode is something a young child could go through. That's the whole point of Pingu. At least that's how I see Pingu. Jeez, I could go on forever about this episode, but we have more episodes to catch up with. So while the last episode just had Pingu do some stuff, this episode has a little more to it. Less happens, sure, but now it sports a theme or two. The episode starts off with the parents doing grown-up work while Pingu slacks off looking at some sort of grown-up magazine. I'm not kidding, look at his eyes. He's up to something and I don't think it's innocent. He does love listening to the music though. Just look at him jamming to that tune. Pingu now has to have some responsibility by looking after the egg. He tries looking after the egg, and as you'd expect with him being an idiot child, he gets really bored really quickly, so he starts jamming to the tunes again. You'd think that the episode would go the route of his parents finding out he's been slacking off with his responsibilities and gets in trouble for it. I even thought that would happen back in the day, I'm not kidding. What can I say other than, it's not exactly what happens. The egg grows legs and starts terrorizing the place. I suppose now's a good time to talk about the animation. It's stop motion, which is admirable in itself. Stop motion is a style of animation that will never fail to impress me. I remember asking my parents about how Pingu was made, and I remember even being impressed back then. When I say back then, I mean a time around the year 2000, just so we're on the same page. Doing stop motion is impressive, but what's more impressive is when it's done so well. Not every piece of stop motion animation has great motion. Even Pingu can be a little choppy at times, but the cute cartoonish character designs allow for some fun, goofy, stretchy reactions that really make this cartoon work. The animation is a substitute for the lack of English, which is good because you need good animation and expressive reactions in a silent cartoon. It would just be far too boring if it was just Pingu moving around in a static, boring, lifeless way. But the animators go to great lengths to show how happy, silly, angry, and sad he can be just from his expressions alone. Anyone, anywhere in the world can watch Pingu and understand what's going on, which is a big achievement. Even more so when you can get toddlers to understand what's happening. Most of the time. Just look at how they animate the egg, for goodness sake. This is brilliant. So the episode ends with Pingu taking more responsibility and helping clean up the igloo. Yeah, the theme of this episode is responsibility, if you even care. Oh no, this is a classic. This is probably one of the top 3 episodes that stuck with me the most. The episode starts with Pingu helping his father with his job. A mailman, or male penguin, work. Then Pingu spits in a stranger lady's face. Old ladies, am I right? This episode is a lot of fun. It's all about Pingu meeting up with a bunch of other people, giving them their mail. It's fun to watch, and for the first time you get to see the world around it. Holy moly, you're not messing around, are you, Pingu? You're just going to show that to a bunch of children? The implications of a truly real-world situation where an elder person gets bad news on the fate of their second half? Oh, my Gutman ain't playing around. This is the one scene that really stuck with me as a child, and the reason I think it's such a memorable episode. I know a child will look at this scene and not fully understand why that elderly penguin is crying. I never fully understood it at the time, but it was enough to make Pingu cry. Flipping Pingu cried. Don't bother making the argument that the message had nothing to do with a relative dying. We all know what it really was. It's such a strange thing to add to a cartoon like this. Even cartoons meant for an older audience stay away from the concept of death. You got balls, Pingu. Do penguins even have balls? Hang on, let me do a quick Google search. Do not look that up! So Pingu sends parcels to a potential criminal, a freak that tries to kill him, and... Pinga? You're not supposed to be in this episode. You haven't hatched yet. Oh, it's just a generic baby penguin. Alright then. Can we just talk about that vehicle? I so wanted that as a child. It looked so fun to ride on. I think I wanted that as a toy. A toy I knew never existed. Nothing you ever want in a cartoon exists. Whoa, good aim. So once again, the episode ends with Pingu and his family together, all happy and glad to be alive. Which just makes you feel even more terrible for that old guy. Looking back, it's probably the only reason I find this episode so imprinted in my mind. I remember the episode well, but the old guy was the only character I remembered from the episode before rewatching it. Ah well, it was a fun episode. Apart from that, but you know what, let's just move on. Pinga Goes Fishing is another episode I remember very fondly. There's not much to this episode, it's probably one of the most uneventful episodes in the season. That doesn't make it bad though. The premise is, what else? Pingu goes fishing. He gets bamboozled by a seal who takes all his bait. They have a fight, the seal gets hurt, Pingu feels bad, he helps the seal, they make up, they're friends now. Another small episode with a nice message. A message that you can make friends with the most unlikely of people. I think. It doesn't really matter. The only point of this episode is to set up the new recurring character named Robbie. Well, it's good to know he has a name. That's the first time I've heard his name. Funny story, I think Robbie was my favourite character in the Pingu series. I can't remember why exactly, but I never liked him in this episode. I remember being so frustrated with him. I was probably feeling something similar to what Pingu was feeling at the time. Who knows. At least it was nice seeing them get together in the end.
Here we go!
That's another thing about this cartoon. Continuity. Again, it doesn't really matter too much. Pingu has very minor continuity, but it goes a long way. It's always exciting seeing recurring characters and plots, even as a child. A lot of cartoons don't really have any continuity whatsoever, so it was refreshing to see how Pingu met Robbie and seeing Pinga hatch a few episodes later. Speaking of which... This episode is actually very engaging. The egg is about to hatch. As far as I can tell, the parents are incredibly worried about the egg not hatching properly. They call up the doctor, who came in riding on some ice skates. Weird, since he's skating on snow, not ice. Plus, he's a penguin, he can do that slide move penguins have. Man, that was a wasted opportunity. He helps hatching the egg like it's a boiled egg, with a spoon. That doesn't seem incredibly healthy, but whatever. I'm not the one with the nurse's hat. Pingu does his part to help out, but he is constantly pushed away by his parents. I was wondering why they were doing that, since egg hatching isn't all that graphic. But I remembered to myself that this is childbirth we're talking about here. Well, penguins must have different standards to us humans. And thus, Pinga is born into the world. Aw, isn't she cute? I even related to this back then. I have 3 brothers and I'm the second oldest. It was nice seeing a new brother come along to join the family. Aw, just look at her. Look at Pingu, even he's excited. Ugh! Whoa, that was unexpected. What the heck is with you, Pingu? Aw, the papa even gets rid of his pipe for the new baby. It would have been helpful to get rid of that pipe when Pingu's around, but... next episode we'll get more into that. This episode isn't necessarily something I went through, but I know it's something a lot of other older brothers and sisters went through. All Pingu wants is attention from his mother, but she is way too caught up in giving Pinga all the attention instead. It's kind of a shame seeing Pingu get rejected and do whatever he can just to get some attention. In fact, he gets rejected so much that he just snaps and loses it.
My name's Scott Bradford. I'm 19. I'm gonna be 20 like December.
In the end, his mother sees how upset he is and makes sure to give him as much attention as Pinga. A nice episode, not much else to say other than this bit being the best reaction to anything ever. This episode is about Pingu and Robbie playing with a fish. That's it. There's nothing else to talk about. It may feel like a little bit of a cop-out to you, the fact that I have nothing interesting to say about this episode. And I agree. Let's have some fun for once. I'm going to dig deep in this episode and tear it apart. We start off with Pingu sleeping and or contemplating about his time in Nam. Robbie comes along and brings back all these horrible memories. After Robbie stops being more of a jerk than he was in the last episode, he starts showing off like a coppy little rat bag right in front of Pingu. Remind me why I liked you again?
It just isn't my OC. He is a seal named Robbie. He can do flips and can do tricks. He can roll like Sonic. And he is good at sports like tennis and he can heal himself, and he is Super Saiyan.
That looks like the type of clap you give a 6-year-old, not because what they did was impressive, but because you're supposed to. They're 6!
Hey mister, look at what I drew!
Then again, that's probably how old Pingu is, so I don't know. Wow, Robbie mate, I know I liked you before, but now you're just being a right douche. Whoa, I'm surprised the fish didn't get torn in two right there. It wouldn't bode well for Pingu's innocence having fish guts poured all over him. What happens there? Go back. There. It just cut. Why did it cut? It just cut to a previous part of the episode for a whole 10 seconds. Is it just the format I'm watching this on? Believe it or not, it isn't. I actually remember this mistake being in the video as well. I was confused then and I had no idea why it was like that. I can only assume now that it was a mistake in editing. I hope they fired the editing guy for ruining an episode of bloody Pingu. So the fish gets stuck and they can't get it down. How unlucky can you get? With all their might, they can't manage as they are too short. So Pingu finds some stilts. What? Why? Pingu, you can stretch your body in ways no other penguin would survive. Okay, maybe you're not the only one, but that's not the point. It's not that high. You can reach it if you just tried. Not only do we have editing errors in this episode, we also have a lack of consistency in Pingu's powers. Both technically and storytelling wise, this is the worst episode yet. 0 out of 10, try harder next time, Otmar Gutman. I have no idea why, but whenever Pingu and his friends eat food, it feels so satisfying. No idea why. Okay, Gutman, you get 1 point for that. 1 out of 10. This episode starts with Pingu and Robbie getting together and just being pals. I admit, it's terribly nice seeing them hang out and just enjoy each other's company. Oh! Pingu, I know you two like each other, but too soon. Robbie, look, we're being watched. They find an abandoned igloo, which just makes me want to go outside right now and explore for any abandoned huts around right now. Man, there's nothing that gets your mind racing more than looking at an ancient structure and wondering what it was like in its prime, what its story was and what the people around it were like. Churches kind of have that effect on me as well. And castles. The two of them scare each other, which is definitely something that children like to do at these scary places for some reason. My goodness, someone put a censor bar there. This episode is way too explicit for children. Hi, this is a parental guide for the Pingu series. I recommend this series to any children under no matter what their age. It's filled with funny stories, likeable characters, and so much more. Every episode is chock full with humour, childlike fun, and crazy antics. Except for this episode, avoid during episode 8 any person under the age of 18 lest you want your child's innocence to degenerate in a matter of seconds. This is a warning to any parent. Avoid episode 8. Avoid episode 8. Avoid episode 8! Oh, sorry. I was just writing my new creepypasta. Pingu, episode 8. Gonna hit the internet like a truck. Anyway, where were we? They run around for a bit and start a snowball fight. They use whatever cover they can and are at a stalemate. Desperate times call for desperate measures. The battle turns into a battle of guerrilla warfare as Pingu does whatever he can to seek victory, even if that means tricking his old friend.
Surprise! You live in a van! What's the matter? Fat got your tongue? Oh! Oh dear, I've made quite a mess.
My name's Snake, the ninja. Mei-Ling. Deep Throat. I'm in front of the disposal facility. Why? The ninja.
Victory screech!
It's all fun and games until the idiot seal gets hurt and rolls on his head. Pingu tries to cheer him up, but he quickly learns that you actually need to treat an injury to heal it. Standing around and being a twat isn't going to do anything. At least that's what I thought, until... This is the greatest thing ever.
Laughter really is the best medicine!
The episode ends on the highest note I could have asked for. So we've got a couple episodes now where it's less to do with what a family might go through and more to do with friend stuff a child might go through. Personally, I find the family antics more interesting than Robbie's antics, though that could just be my boring adulthood talking. Then again, it is good to have a break from the family drama, even for a toddler. Sometimes you just need to have some fun, which is what these last two episodes did. At least to me. It made me forget about that elderly penguin at least. Episode 8 might as well be a full 10-minute episode because episode 9 starts at the exact same area with the exact same characters episode 8 ended. Yet they treat it like it's a brand new day. 0 out of 10, do better, Gutman. In all seriousness, it's an alright episode. They all are, to be honest. Some episodes I just seem to find more engaging than others, I'll admit. My mind's starting to get a little more blurry with these later episodes, but I'll just briefly go over this one and move on. Pingu and Robbie make a sled from half a barrel. They find a hill and go down it. They do this a couple times and they have a lot of fun. I guess it does have a good little teaching tool here, showing how you can use a rope to pull something up a steep hill easier. It's quite awesome to think that a child could learn this technique from this episode. I mean, hey, someone had to have at least copied what they did within the 30 years this episode existed. Again, it's fine. It's cool. Nothing else to really say here. Time to move on. Oh gosh! Pingu, look out! Oh my gosh. Guys. I don't know how to say this, but Pingu is dead. I never expected it to end like this. Robbie will have to live with what happened. Pingu's parents will have to... Pinga will have to grow up without a big brother. I see what Pingu was trying to tell us now. It shows the life of a young penguin who likes to have fun and learn so many new things. It shows the life of a boy who will try anything for adventure. Of course he went too far. It shows at any point, at any time, it can all vanish with the snap of a finger. Everything. I should have seen this coming. Perhaps the letter the old penguin got was not of a wife, but of a son, foreshadowing the events to come. I don't remember the series ending like this. Perhaps it was so traumatic that I erased it from my memory. Made up a story and convinced myself that Pingu was still here. Goodbye, Pingu. You were always my favorite boy. I'm sorry, that was the worst joke I ever did. Of course he's not dead. Honestly, I'd be more upset if there was only 9 of these 5-minute episodes than Pingu actually dying. I want to get my money's worth, dang it! Robbie gets a doctor, Pingu barely makes it out alive and has these Nam flashbacks again. So this actually caught me a little off guard. I completely forgot about this part, which is weird because it's very similar to something that happens later on in the show, which we'll get to when we get to. It's a fantastic episode to show to kids though. There is such a thing as going too far. You can't keep on being reckless, or you'll end up under a pile of heavy snow, I guess. It also proves that you don't have to dumb down these situations to a younger audience. They can cope with perilous situations if it's presented correctly and the outcome is beneficial to them. I find Pingu succeeds in that department. Well, what have we got next then? Almost halfway there. Whew. Episode 10 is... well, it's nothing. Really, it's nothing. I guess the new penguin is introduced. What's his name? I don't flippin' know. We'll just call him... Bartho. There, Bartho. Pingu meets Bartho. They go skiing. They do some stuff. Yeah, here's some jokes. The bullies show up in this episode, except they're not the bullies anymore. I guess Pingu and these two made up since then. Oh, wait a minute, is that Bartho from before? Oh, I forgot about him. I suppose that wasn't his first introduction then. There were a couple things I liked in this episode. The three dudes are going sledge-boing. They all have fun, except for Pingu, whose sled isn't working properly. Somehow. Can I just say, I totally feel Pingu's frustration here. We've all had that feeling before, where you just want something to go right, but for reasons beyond your knowledge, it just won't. I feel ya, Pingu. Rust was causing a bunch of friction on Pingu's sled, so they fixed that up to the point where there's so little friction that it's practically as light as a feather. Pingu goes fast and gets stuck under a bunch of rocks again. No, I'm kidding. Instead he gets stuck in a snowman. Somehow. This is pretty much a repeat of episode 9, but told in a more comedic fashion. Which is fine, but we've already seen this. I suppose I like this episode better though, if only for Bortho and his compadre here. They remind me of Laurel and Hardy the way they interact with each other.
Well, here's another nice mess you've gotten me into.
What do you mean, I got you into?
Well, your name's Laurel, isn't it?
Well, only on my mother's side. You see, it was like this.
Mother's side.
I'm going to be honest, this one was... well, it felt weird for me. I don't know whether it's the subject matter or just the fact that I'm kinda getting burnt out by this point. The episode is called Pinga is Left Out. It starts off cute enough with Pingu and Pinga going to hang out for presumably the first time together. Keep in mind that I can only assume Pinga is just a few weeks old by this point, maybe at most a month. Pingu immediately hangs out with his friend and forgets about Pinga. Pinga tries joining in, but then Pingu becomes the most unlikable I've ever seen him. He tells her off in the most aggressive way possible. So the rest of the episode is spent with a baby crying and running away, Pingu crying and looking for her, and then we can only assume Pinga is... well, what else? Look, I know Pinga is in the house. I know there was really nothing to worry about. I know it's all going to be okay in the end. But it's important to understand that I put myself in these characters' shoes, and I can relate to Pingu a lot. I completely understand what it feels like for a younger sibling to get in the way of you and your pal's playtime. It's happened to me. It's more to do with how it punches you in the gut, with how they present Pinga getting lost. It's horribly depressing to watch, for me at least. Maybe if they made Pingu less aggressive, maybe if they made Pinga not cry and just wander off on her own, maybe if they never showed that hole she could have fell in, maybe if they didn't dwell so much in the emotional trauma of losing a sibling. I don't know. I'll just say this much, losing a sibling is not something I would want to be thinking about when watching Pingu. Yes, Pingu has gotten himself into troublesome situations before. The difference is he got himself into trouble. Whereas this episode is the first time where Pingu let someone else down, but not just anyone. His little sister. I can imagine myself being in this exact situation as an adult, and I honestly don't know how I would be able to cope, never mind it happening if I was as young as Pingu. I don't know what this episode is trying to say. I could very easily make jokes about it, like I do the other episodes, but it's making my mind go places I'd rather not go. Am I overanalyzing this? Probably. Most likely, in fact. But I'm just being honest here. I can't tell if this works for the show's benefit or not. The episode's fine, I guess. It's got me thinking, just not in the way I expected or even wanted. Sorry this got real for a minute. Anyway, back to being silly again. This episode is great. As of rewatching Pingu, I think it's turned into one of my favourites so far. The episode starts with the most sweetest thing I've seen all week. Aw, ain't that cute? Cuter than this for crying out loud. There's also a new character who was never introduced and doesn't really have a personality. At least yet. I don't know. We'll call him Fishy right now, because he smells fishy to me. They see two older penguins and President Trump play some hardcore hockey. They join in thinking it's going to be a fun, casual match. Of course they get thrashed for the first couple of scores, They were able to win a goal, but that's when all hell breaks loose.
Tortorella at the Vancouver bench is already looking at the
and here we
Calgary
go.
bench.
Line brawl to start this game. Westgarth and BX are separated. Sestito and McGrattan back at the blue line. Torts is angry.
Is he ever? He's looking directly at the Calgary Flames bench.
This is great. It's looking at the difference between playing competitively and playing for fun. Nice try, Robbie. As soon as Pingu is able to gain a score, they are able to glow at the humiliation of their enemies.
No, get those lights off! Off! They're too bright, turn them off!
Of course, being hardcore hockeyers, their thirst for showing their superiority over children will never be quenched. At least until they smack Pingu against the wall, push Fishy away and blow the wind out of Robbie. Pingu and his gang had enough and just leave. I love these sorts of messages in these cartoons. Winning is nice, sure, but having fun is a lot more important. It's cool. It's nice. I wish the ending was a little better though. I get what they were going for, having the hockeyers have a bit of fun with Pingu and the gang, but it seems a bit too girlish for the Penguins, the Seal, and President Trump.
No!
Oh, then again. Talk about being relatable. This episode starts off like this. That is so 6-year-old me. That is so 6-year-old me. Pingu meets up with his pal Bartho to build an igloo. Unfortunately for them, it turns sour quickly because they have disagreements on where to build the wall, on where to build the igloo. In the South Pole? I totally believe that they're children if they're that petty over where to build in the barren wasteland that is the South Pole. It gets worse until it ends up in an all-out brawl. This is exactly what children do. They argue more, they fight, they get sad, then make up in a matter of minutes. They finish the igloo together and that's kind of it. It's a nice episode, let's just move on. Yeah, this one wasn't long, I'm kind of getting bored here, I'm just trying to get through this quickly now. Another episode I hold near and dear to my heart. The episode starts with Pingu throwing a complete tantrum. He doesn't like the food he's been given. I feel ya, Pingu. I've been there. Pingu gets properly punished after creating a big mess by getting smacked right up where the sun don't shine. I feel ya, Pingu. I've been there. I got no idea if parents do this anymore, but I do remember at one point in my life where I got smacked right there, and let me tell ya, it does not feel good. I suppose that's a benefit of having no body and being trapped up in space. Nowhere to smack me but my face. And good luck getting to me.
Great supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
Pingu runs away from home. He's his own independent penguin now. He walks into the dead of night to live in his own accord. He, of course, can't handle being out at night on his own. He gets spooked by a bunch of monstrous-looking sculptures and Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Muppet Town. I gotta say, it's a shame seeing Pingu so heartbroken, though you have to work really hard if you want to convince the audience that smacking a child is justified in a preschooler's cartoon. I'd pay good money to see this happen in Peppa Pig, let me tell you. It's obvious how the episode ends. The parents look at the time and discover they might actually be terrible parents, grab the sweet red and find Pingu. It ends on another sweet ending. This episode isn't something I really relate to because I never decided to run away from home, but I feel like there are some children out there who did. A lot of cartoons seem to be doing this whole run away from home episode at the time. Maybe it happened a lot in the 90s? I don't think that's really something that happens often nowadays, though. I thought I had more to say about this one due to it being very creepy and potentially scary for younger people watching it, but honestly, this episode does everything it needed to do. It's hard poking fun at an episode that is both quite a serious subject matter and delivers well in its story. I think it's possible for parents to get something out of this as well, now that I think about it, whether it's preparing them or just looking back to a time something similar happened. Maybe. I wish I had more to say, but oh well. Good job, Pingu. Seriously, did Otmar Gutman just spy on my childhood? Go back 10 years earlier and make this cartoon? This episode is literally about children not wanting to go to bed because they're not tired. Oops. Oh, hey, I never knew Quack Detective made its first appearance on Pingu. There's some trivia for you. Pingu, you scumbag. What the heck is wrong with you? They seem quite shocked to see their mother pass out. There's something quite interesting here that I can't quite put my finger on. There's a spilled drink on the screen, with some ominous music in the background, and it kinda lingers on the scene for a while. It took a while to figure it out, but for a second I thought the show was insinuating that she just drank alcohol to get rid of her stress. For a moment my mind was just blown that Pingu went that far, but on second thought, apart from the fact that she passed out, there's nothing really to suggest that it was alcohol. I guess it's open to interpretation, I don't know. A lot of Pingu seems to be like that, now that I think about it. So Pingu and Pinga help their mother out and get her to sleep. A sweet end to another nice episode. Apart from that whole sniffing feces thing, I don't know what that was about. I hope you like accordions, because that's 80% of all you'll hear in this episode. Pingu is kicked out of the house because he is being very annoying. I guess he decides to visit his grandpa until he comes across what looks like a political debate. Pingu quite possibly stops a riot from happening by driving everyone away with his terrible accordion skills. Think of how much riots in America would have been avoided if more annoying kids with accordions were out there. I kinda wish more debates ended like this. So coincidentally, Pingu visits his grandpa, who just so happens to be playing the accordion as well. Pingu goes home and plays the accordion sub-parly. What do you know, our son actually has talent. I'm not going to be disappointed again, that's a first. Another funny story, when I was young I thought it sounded too good for Pingu to be playing that so well, especially when it only took a day to learn. Looking back, however, it doesn't sound all that perfect, and it probably took Pingu hours to learn that one song. It's just a funny story. Not much else to say about this episode, other than it's nice seeing Pingu and Pinga finally play together and actually get along for once. Where are we now? Okay, almost there. What happens in this episode again? I don't know. guys, I'm getting burnt out here. Nothing wrong with the episode per se, but I haven't really got much else to say for this one. There's kind of a pattern going on with the majority of these episodes. Here are the few jokes. Pingu, you scumbag. Pingu hits the bar, and it's now we find out that the currency in this world is fish.
That's a lot of fish.
That doesn't really sound sustainable. Imagine food being the main type of income in real life. Things would get sour fast. No pun intended. Maybe that's what the whole political discussion was about. Okay, I'm really starting to question your parenting abilities. You just let a toddler go out on their own unsupervised? I guess they needed some time and quiet, and it's not like they stopped Pingu from going off on his own all the time anyway. I have no clue why Pingu makes Pinga drink whatever concoction this man brews up. At best, they're coloured water. At worst, it's alchemy. Why do I serve alcohol to children? Guess karma caught up with you, didn't it, Pingu? It's always hilarious to imagine him taking little bunny poops as he runs.
BOOM!
I don't even remember seeing this episode before now, which is weird because it seems to start off in the most, how should I say it, weird and sort of illegal way? To show you what I mean, I'm going to dub the first 2 minutes of this episode.
Hey pal, come on, we're gonna play some hopscotch. You ever played hopscotch before? Of course I have, Pingu. Oh yeah, man, I can't see anything going wrong today. Look out, I don't want to have to stop because of you twerps. This is my turn, you hear? What? You can't just park here, can you?
Yeah man, I'm pretty sure parking in his property isn't totally
What gives you the right to park here?
I have the right to park wherever I damn well want to, kid. Now go away and leave me be.
Dude, don't let him get away with it, you gotta do something.
You want me to hit you with the stick, mate?
You know, I could easily tell my parents, right? Wait, what are you... See this sign? My law, my parking space. It's alright, buddy. We can call the police on him later. My town, my law. Imagine you, as a child, were playing with your friend, and a stranger just went right up to your house and parked his car right in your play area. Like, what? I would have liked to have seen what Pingu's parents would have done to this guy, knowing he nearly ran them over and set up signs right outside their house. You can't just go around marking territory, dude. The world doesn't revolve around you. You're an adult. Start acting like one. Okay, look, I know it's a cartoon, they're in the South Pole and they're penguins or whatever, but their way of living is very similar to humans. I'd imagine they'd have their own rules when it comes to marking territory. Pingu as a show is supposed to mimic our life anyway, so what does it mean when this guy just parks right in front of their house? I don't know.
Like weaklings, Pingu and his friend go to play somewhere else. Why they decide to play where that scary lady lives is beyond me.
You want me to hit you with the stick, mate?
Pingu and his pals carelessly lose the ball and try to get it back, but the angry lady isn't going to have any of it. Pingu, you scumbag. I honestly don't know whose side I'm on this one. The lady is clearly annoyed by the boys. Sure, she has no right to be so demanding, but the boys do insult and laugh at her misfortune. And sure, she was a right twat for pushing Pingu the way she did, but the boys could have easily played somewhere else. They only make up when they help each other out, which is nice and all. But all of this could have been avoided if... Him! I knew it! It was him all along. Oh, I'm so tired. Which one's this? Let's see. Pingu at school? Okay, I can do this one. This episode begins with Robbie telling Pingu about a lead he has on who assassinated JF Kennedy. This makes Pingu go to his room and start writing a letter to the law enforcement on the suspect. His dad walks in on him before Pingu can finish writing the letter. His father seemed rather anxious about what Pingu wrote in the note and locks Pingu in his room before warning his son that he is dealing with matters that are beyond what he can comprehend. No matter what Pingu does, he can't seem to get out of his room. All seemed lost. Until Robbie shows up at his window alongside Bortho. Robbie had just formed a resistance team that is going to capture the assassinator once and for all. Robbie and his team helped Pingu escape and had him join up the resistance immediately. Robbie's new intel showed that the suspect was black with a white belly, a red beak, and a round head. They knew this criminal was near, and thus they embarked in the sunset, armed and ready to bring justice to an age-old crime. Ready for anything. Ready for justice. Ready for sacrifice. Oh, and then Pingu goes to school and this happens.
It's Robo. Momo. Silis. Cuckoo.
Huh. So the word cuckoo is spelt the same way in Pinguese as it is in English. That's interesting. I hope we learn more about the Pinguese language soon. It would be nice knowing what the heck they're saying. I mean, no, I really don't care. I couldn't care less about the Pinguese language. Why not even bother writing this down? Before we continue, let me tell you something. Everyone has something they'll remember forever. Something that's special to them, whether they remember it fondly or not. There isn't a lot I remember from my young days, as I keep saying, but believe it or not, this episode right here, this is something that has always been in the back of my mind. This one episode is the one that's made me remember this series for so long. In fact, it's so memorable to me that I associated Pingu with this episode for probably most of my life so far. It was such a traumatic thing to watch from my young days that I actually considered dedicating an entire video to it. But since I'm here now, I might as well get it over with. Oh, I'm sweating. Butler? Help me out here. Oh, thank you. Oh, now scram, you lovely man. This episode starts off like any other, Pingu having fun with his mate. Due to Pingu's carelessness, he wastes no time in getting the ball stuck in an incredibly eerie looking small cave. I don't know what it is about this bit, but the music going completely silent makes my heart race. I guess it's only because I know where this is going. The next minute is the most suspenseful and frustrating thing I've ever watched when I was younger. They tried to get the ball back, but uh-oh, there's some wobbly ground right between them and the ball. The terrifying music kicks in, which signifies danger and makes me hyperventilate more. For goodness sake, Pingu, you're trying to scar me for life? That isn't the type of music you should have in your cartoon, that's jump scare music in a horror movie. They are so close. So close. But despite both their efforts, they fail. They always fail. I remember believing to myself every time I watched this bit that maybe they'd get it this time. Maybe they'd be able to grab it without having to enter the cave. Instead, I always have to deal with this scene. They slide right into the cave and Pingu immediately begins to lose all hope of ever getting out. But don't worry, Berthel here reassures Pingu that they can just climb out the way they came and they're trapped forever. Sorry Pingu, you're never going to see your family again. The screen fades to black and the credits roll. No music, nothing, just credits and silence. Okay, that never happened, but gosh darn it, this episode really made me believe this is how it's going to end. Having very limited options at this point, Pingu and Berthel decide to move on in the cave, looking for a way out. My goodness. Check out this eerie atmosphere. This was haunting for me back then. It's so quiet. Ghastly. It's like something could just jump out at you at any second. The huge, sharp icicles didn't do much to soothe matters either. The next minute and a half is spent with them walking through the cave, and it just keeps going and going. They appear to be getting higher as well. Whoops. While I'm left watching in the fetal position on the floor, Pingu soldiers on until he finally finds salvation. Look at Pingu. It looks like he's seen Jesus return to Earth. Though, to be fair, that's how I felt when I knew this episode was almost over. Unfortunately, all hope is still lost because there's a huge ditch between them and the exit. What follows is the most tense thing I've ever seen on television. I'm not even joking. I have never felt so much suspense since watching this episode for the first few times. Ah, you see, Berthel's reaction here perfectly simulates my reaction to this part. Oh my. This is a lot higher than I remember it being. Turn off the TV, it's too scary. This right here is what I remember the most from Pingu. Pingu's friend nearly falling down a massive ditch, being even more trapped in this ice cave than he already was. This is such a terrifying situation for kids, maybe even some adults. I don't know what made me so nervous about this bit. Maybe I got myself into a similar situation at one point, but I can't really remember. This freaked me out. I was on the floor, drooling and having spaz attacks. Okay, maybe it never went that far, but it made my heart beat faster than a flippin' bullet train. Of course they make it, giving the most satisfying embrace I've ever watched. I'd say I was relieved when I watched this back then, but by this point I've probably ran to my room and hidden underneath my blankets, curled up, rocking back and forth and whispering, "It's just a cartoon, it's just a cartoon, it's just a cartoon." Oh, what a roller coaster ride. Well, here it is. The thing that traumatized me at a young age. I think this episode made me afraid of getting lost in places I don't understand. Like I said, I thought about going over this episode in more detail in a separate video just because of how it made me feel. Obviously, this wasn't the only thing that scared me when I was younger, but I might mention it again in the future should I ever decide to do a video on that. Jokes aside, this episode isn't that bad. It's not all that scary at all anymore, especially if you watch all these episodes one after another, like I just did. You kind of see a pattern going on with these episodes. Something goes wrong, they try to fix it, it's all happy in the end. Not all, but a lot of episodes go through the same structure as this one. But look, I was around 3-5 years old when I watched Pingu, maybe even younger actually. I never analysed or spotted structural similarities in episodes. I saw what I saw, and what I saw was two children very similar to me trapped in a very creepy cave and put in a situation where they would have to rely on their ingenuity and each other to make it out safely. That was a huge concept for me to comprehend at the time. I never thought about having to rely on myself. No 5-year-old does. At least I don't think they should be. It's also a sudden huge change in scenery. I was used to the blue sky, white snow and round igloos of the South Pole. But then this episode comes along with its blank emptiness, sharp circles, ominous music, and rotten ditch. It's like whiplash. It's like being smacked on the back of the head with a belt. On a sort of related note, the infamous episode, Pingu's Dream, is apparently the episode that comes right after this one. While Pingu in the Ice Cave was the episode that gave me nightmares, Pingu's Dream was the episode that gave everyone else nightmares, which I don't blame you if it did. Funnily enough, Pingu's Dream never scared me much at all, simply because I never saw it at the time. Either because the VCR I watched Pingu on had everything in the wrong order, or I never made it that far because I stopped watching at Pingu in the Ice Cave. I found out about Pingu's Dream when I found out about the internet, so by that point I was already about 12 years old. I wasn't watching Pingu by then, but I'm positively sure that I would be utterly terrified of Pingu's Dream if I ever saw it when I was young. Sorry if I'm going a little off topic here, just thought I'd give Pingu's Dream a mention because that's the episode everyone likes to talk about. I'm sorry if you're eager to hear me talk about Pingu more. I think this is a fine enough place to stop here. There are 5 more episodes in Season 1 after this one, but this is just more of the same. Like I said, most of these episodes have a repeating structure. There's only so much I can talk about in each episode at a time. I'm repeating myself quite a lot with these episodes now. Now I know what you're all thinking. James, you just spent 72 minutes talking about Pingu. What the heck is wrong with you? Okay, first of all, there's plenty wrong with me. Second of all, you're not going to tell me that Pingu isn't worth watching. Honestly, for the longest of times now, I've wanted to rewatch Pingu again anyway. I'd figured I'd like to make it into a video and talk about what makes it so good. Pingu is good. It's very good. Most people shrug it off as some worthless, obnoxious kiddie stuff, but no! Pingu's anything but worthless. It's kiddie, sure, and it can be obnoxious at times, but it's not worthless. Anyone can find something to enjoy in Pingu. Anyone. I said before, Pingu is special to me, and let me tell you why. Pingu is my insight into my childhood. Watching Pingu is like watching me 10 to 15 years ago. Sure, I never learned how to play an instrument. I never really got jealous of my siblings. I never really got lost in a cave. But I do remember getting stuck. I remember going sledding for the first time. I remember having fights with my younger brother. I remember being sad. I remember arguing with friends and getting into a fight. I remember the little things like playing with blocks or walking on a little stone frame. I remember being annoying as anything just to get my parents' attention. I even remember having bathroom problems when I was little. I see myself in Pingu. I see myself in other characters. I see myself in Robbie with his cheeky personality. I even see myself in Pinga with what it's like having an older brother. And believe it or not, even today, watching this series now, I now see myself in Pingu's parents, knowing that I might actually have to deal with kids like Pingu someday. I don't only see myself, I see other people I knew in other characters too. Whether this was the cartoon's intention or not, I have to applaud it for that. Yes, I don't go through absolutely everything Pingu and his friends go through in this cartoon. That's not what I'm trying to say though. I'm not trying to say that this cartoon is specifically made for me. I'm just saying what I personally see in this cartoon. Gosh darn it, I'm not even done yet. Pingu is all about the things children go through to help them in the future. It prepares them for life in a way that no other cartoon for this age range does. Just to prove what I'm saying isn't completely rubbish, I'm going to compare it to another cartoon. Ever heard of Peppa Pig? It's everywhere in the UK. I was told somewhere that Peppa Pig was the largest pork export in the UK. Now that's easier to believe when you see that Peppa Pig has gone on for 13 years, 5 seasons, 219 episodes and is still going. For the record, I do not like Peppa Pig. I have never liked Peppa Pig. I don't like how it looks, I don't like its characters, I don't like its stories. From what I've seen, it's terribly stale. Some of you might think that it's unfair comparing Peppa Pig with my bias towards Pingu, but look mate, if you really need me to compare Peppa Pig and Pingu in a balanced way, I don't know what to tell you. You can tell which one has soul, and which one was conjured up by demons just by looking at them.
Can't escape from crossing fate! Fight!
Pingu and Peppa Pig have a lot of similarities. They're both preschooler cartoons about a family of anthropomorphic animals, a brother, sister, mother, father, and a collection of other minor characters. The premise is almost completely same, but are incredibly different in execution. Strap in folks, this is going to be brief. Characters and design. Pingu is a penguin. Penguins are generally cute. Peppa is a pig. Pigs are generally ugly. Pingu's character designs are simple, cute, expressive 3D models which help to highlight each and every single character's personality, making them more likeable and memorable. Peppa Pig, despite having a larger number of animal species, every single character looks the same with very little difference between them. The only major thing that's keeping the characters apart from each other are the colours used. So you end up associating characters with what colour of shirt they wear rather than how they look and act. Pingu, while hasn't got a ton of variety in the animal species, is able to make each character distinct by not only changing proportions, but personality between the characters. Think of it like this. Look at this image. Try to find Pingu. Where is he? Now try to find Peppa here. Plus, there's just too many characters to keep track of in Peppa Pig. There's no need to have that much. Oh, and at least Robbie is a different designed character from the penguins. He's incredibly distinct, unlike any characters from Peppa Pig. Animation. Pingu is stop motion. Peppa Pig is 2D. Which can be good. In my opinion, 2D animation, when used correctly and with care, can be the most impressive and jaw-dropping style of animation ever. When used with laziness, 2D can look worse than a primary school child's drawing. Unfortunately for Peppa Pig, it's no Samurai Jack. Everything is flat, everything changes proportion, nothing has any depth, there are animation and continuity errors aplenty. It's a really rushed show. Pingu, being 3D stop motion, doesn't have many of these problems. While not the most colourful show out there, it still has the stretchy, sporadic cartoon humour you come to expect. Characters change proportion on Pingu because it makes them more expressive and funny, not because the frame cut to a different angle, like in Peppa Pig. Pingu's 3D character models allow for very expressive animation while Peppa Pig's 2D stickman drawings limit themselves. If they're not bobbing up and down to move, they're standing completely still 80% of the time. Story. Pingu has consequences. Peppa Pig has none.
Sorry I squashed your pumpkin, Daddy.
Never mind the pumpkin. The important thing is that you are okay.
That puts Pingu way ahead of Peppa Pig already. Peppa will never be put in similar situations to Pingu. Pingu learns and adapts to each situation he has and does whatever he can to solve a problem. Peppa just goes along with whatever she's thrust upon Never thinking for herself, never learning, never getting in trouble. Okay. I'll give Peppa Pig this. Peppa Pig has a lot more variety in what locations they have. Pingu only really had one location most of the time. White ground, blue sky, sometimes a pond, sometimes a cave. Though admittedly it's much easier to create backdrops in 2D than it is making it from miniatures, though Pingu does do everything it can to change the locations by putting in stuff like clutter, slopes, ponds, etc. Both shows do what they need to, which I can't really fault either for. And I'm not gonna bother with complaining that if Pingu lives in an igloo in the South Pole, then Peppa should live in a mud puddle in a farm.
Ah, I love camping. Sleeping in the open air with the stars above me. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
It's not like these two cartoons are based in the same plane of existence or anything. Still, I would prefer it if Peppa Pig used that huge amounts of merchandise money to give us a more detailed looking world. Is it too much to ask a cartoon to develop its look after 4.5 bloody seasons? Even Pingu had the decency to make everything smoother and improve its animation in its later seasons. If a stop motion cartoon from the 90s can do that, then a 2D animated cartoon from the mid-2000s can do that too. Pingu kinda has dialogue. If you count gibberish as dialogue, sure, it has dialogue. If you don't count gibberish as dialogue, then I guess it doesn't have dialogue. Peppa Pig has dialogue. Peppa Pig has dialogue because it needs dialogue. The reason it needs dialogue is because the animation is so limited they have no other means to properly tell a story. Peppa Pig also has narration. Peppa Pig needs narration. The reason Peppa Pig needs narration is because if they didn't, each episode would be 2 minutes long. You'd think without proper dialogue, Pingu would need narration, but it's able to convey everything in each episode which lasts 5 minutes apiece without any narration. This is very impressive. To some, the gibberish may be rather annoying, and I can imagine it might be very grating to some people, but you can always get a vague idea of what they're saying to one another from their expressions alone, not to mention the context of the situation they're in being very clear and understandable. It leaves a lot to the imagination, which is fantastic for children. Peppa Pig has none of this. Peppa Pig tells you exactly what's happening when you already know what's happening. Peppa Pig leaves nothing to the imagination. And that's the end of the Peppa Pig and Pingu comparison. I can't believe this video ended up as a Pingu versus Peppa Pig discussion.
Can't escape from crossing fate! Fight!
What the heck actually is this video? Like, all I'm trying to do is just convey that just because Pingu is a preschooler's cartoon, it doesn't make it automatically terrible. Yes, most preschoolers' cartoons do tend to be rather bad, but that doesn't make all of them bad. I don't have to explain all this. Pingu is good, Peppa is bad. Go watch Pingu. Show your kids, show your offspring. Go, do it, now, before I sit you down in your chair and force you. The show would be great for your kids. My parents let me watch Pingu, and look how I turned out. I've been going all over the place with this video, so let's get a little more serious here. Not everyone is going to go through the same thing. Not everyone is going to have the same connection to things as others. I'm not saying Pingu is a perfect show. Not at all. I'm not saying everyone should stop what they're doing right now to buy a copy of this cartoon to watch it. I'm not even trying to say there isn't anything to dislike about this show. Just look at me with episode 12. I'm just conveying how much this cartoon means to me. It's the same as a stuffed animal, you know? Or a toy someone had at a young age, sticking with them until they're an adult. To everyone else, it's just a piece of lifeless cotton and fabric stuck together to look vaguely like an animal or something. But to the child that owns it, it means so much more. It's your friend that'll stick with you growing up, and sometimes they do. Sometimes adults can't bring themselves to throw out something that they've held onto for so long. It's the same with me and Pingu. Pingu is like a gateway for me. A gateway that opens up all the good memories, the bad memories, and the feelings I felt there and then. Not only that, but it showed me things I experienced, things I would eventually experience, and things I could possibly experience in the future. And it's only now I realise this. I can't be the only one who feels this way. I know I'm not. Others could feel the same way about Thomas the Tank Engine or Fireman Sam. Everyone's had their thing that's stuck with them, and this is just mine. Pingu lasted me years since I first saw it. I was a few years in primary school before I stopped watching it, and I can tell you, primary school wasn't exactly the greatest for me. I was shy, I was dyslexic, I started being insecure about my weight. School really did suck. I was usually a level down behind everyone else in the classroom, which left me with the more mentally unstable and troublesome kids. I guess Pinga kinda helped me through those first few years of primary. I didn't have to worry about spelling or people. All I had to worry about was homework getting in the way of this show transporting me to a world where, though similar to mine at the time, was filled with lots of charming and relatable fun. Pingu might not mean much to you, but it means a lot to me. You know, I always like to imagine what Pingu would have been like when he grew older. I always imagined him as a rather tall, brave, heroic friend that had put others above himself.
Hey!
What? What the?
Hey!
Is that?
Where the hell you been?
What the? It's Pingu. It's actually Pingu. In space. What are the odds?
I've been waiting for you.
Oh yeah, that's right. You see, a lot has happened to Pingu since the series ended, almost a decade ago. He's still on the hunt for the person who killed JF Kennedy last I saw him. I ran into him and thought I'd tag along just to see how it goes. That was a while ago though. What was it, like 2010?
Yeah.
So, did you actually find him?
Yes, sir.
Is he dead?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, well, what was his name?
Brewski.
Oh. Well, I'm happy for you.
Okay, listen up. I know lots of people who pay well for a risky job, so to speak. You just gotta know the right people, and you're all set, 'cause you know me. We got another job. Something really big.
What are you saying exactly?
Like I said, I know people. It's just a question of money.
We really doing this? I don't recall ever owing you anything.
Are you kidding? We still on for what we talked about yesterday?
I've literally not seen you in years.
All right. Okay. No problem. Remember last week, you know...
Pingu, I'm seriously having trouble with understanding what you're talking about with your limited voice lines.
What the fuck do you expect me to do?
Hey, calm down, okay? I just don't know what you want, alright?
Where the hell you been? Laying around in bed all day?
No. I can't. In case you haven't noticed by now, I've kinda lost my body, so I haven't been able to lay, well, anywhere since then.
That was fucking impressive. Even I gonna stand up and cheer.
Very funny. Look, I don't have anything. Whatever I owe you, money, the flippin' Pingu VCR, I don't have it anymore. I need to go all the way back to where I left it. I don't even know where that is.
Wait, you mean you gotta go back?
Well, yeah.
You don't want to go back, do you?
No.
Holy shit, what a fucking disappointment. I thought you was good at this. Here, I'll give you some of my lines. Hey, here's one. Hey, baby, that's a nice outfit. It'll look good crumpled up at the foot of my bed in the morning.
I can't wear an outfit.
Here, I got another one. Why don't we go back to my place and play house? You be the door and I'll slam you. Oh, here's a good one. You're fucking dead!
Whoa, no. no, 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 no.
You know what time it is?
What? What time is it?
It's time for you to get your own fucking car.